Let's talk about the difference between a communication strategy and a communications plan. You'll probably have stakeholders come to you and say things like, I need a communication strategy for this project. Or they might say, oh, can you put together a communications plan for the next 3 years? And they use the phrase strategy and plan interchangeably as if they're the same thing. They're absolutely not. In this video, let me talk you through some of the key differences between a communication strategy and a communications plan, so you can tell them apart and you know when to use one or the other. This is something that I found really confusing early in my career. I wish someone had told me, so hey, I hope this is helpful for you. If you're new here, I'm Joanna. I'm a communications consultant, author and trainer. If you're a communications professional, you want to subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss any of my future videos. Okay, let's start with a story to start illustrating the differences. Sure, I'm Irish, I'm always telling wee little stories. Let's say Sharon from HR comes to you and says, I need a communication strategy for our new wellness program launch. So you start asking her strategic questions. What is the business outcome that we're trying to achieve? How does this support our employee retention goals? What's our overall positioning around employee well-being? How does this connect to the leader of priorities for this year? And Sharon looks kind of annoyed and a bit baffled, and she says, oh, no. I just need you to help me create like the key messages around the benefits and what employees can expect from this launch, and then help me figure out what channels to use to send the communication. And that's what she is calling a strategy. And you realize she doesn't want a strategy at all. She wants a very tactical communications plan about key messages and channels and audiences and roles and responsibilities and timelines. Sharon doesn't understand the difference between a strategy and a plan. Maybe a lot of you don't either. So let's look at it. Let's just demystify it together. Let's start with the word strategy. Strategy is one of those words that just terrifies people. It is a very overwhelming word and people feel like, oh, that's only for like people in the top C-suite. That's nothing to do with me. Strategy doesn't have to be that complicated and it doesn't have to be scary. A strategy is simply your roadmap for where you are now and where you want to go in the future. That's it. It's just your direction. It's your approach. A strategy will tell you what success ultimately will look like, and it should guide every decision that you make. Your strategy is the what and the why, and your plan is the how and the when. Thinking again about Sharon and her wellness program, she is really asking for a communications plan, and that's going to have very detailed tactical information. Things like key messages around the wellness program. Target audiences. There might be multiple different audiences for multiple different messages. The communication channels that you're going to use to do this wellness launch. It's going to have a timeline. It's going to have roles and responsibilities for who's involved. It's all about how you're going to do it and all the nitty-gritty details that need to happen. I think the easiest separation is if you think about your strategy is your what and your why. Your plan is your how and your when and maybe your where. And ideally, you really want to have both when you're working in a comms team. So you have your strategy up here that sets out how the communications function is aligned to the business, has clear objectives, and then those objectives are teased out into different communication plans to turn them from high-level objectives into really concrete things that will happen in the business. So 7 key differences between a comms strategy and a comms plan. Number 1 is a time frame. A comms strategy and a comms plan will have different time frames, different durations. A strategy will have a longer time frame. Ideally, it should be aligned to whatever is the time frame of your overall business strategy. In some companies, that's 12 months. In some companies, that's 3 years or 5 years. The strategy is a long-term plan for what you want to achieve, and a communications plan will have a much shorter time frame. Maybe it's a campaign that's going to run for 6 months. Maybe it's something that's going to be delivered in 2 months. Your communications plan is going to take something out of your strategy, pull it down, and then draw out all the nitty-gritty details, and we're going to deliver this in 2 months' time. But it's going to be much, much shorter than your strategy. Difference number 2 is the level of detail. A strategy is pretty high level. It's pretty scant on details. Your strategy is about the big picture. What are you trying to achieve at a high level? How does that connect to the business priorities? How is communication helping the business to win? It's also about the trade-offs. We're going to focus on this, but not this in order to deliver the maximum value or the maximum impact. A strategy document should not be going into details about key messages or multiple audiences or channels. That belongs in a plan. Now your comms plan, this is where all the detail lives. We love going into all the detail, don't we? This is where that you do lay out all the stuff about the messages and the audiences and the channels and the timelines and who's going to do what. So remember, the strategy is the what and the why. High level, scant on detail. But then the comms plan is the how and the when and the where. This is where you really get all that detail really explicitly laid out. Difference 3 is about flexibility. One of the differences between a comms strategy and a comms plan is the level of flexibility of both of those documents. Your comms plan, again, we talked about it should be aligned to the timeline of the business strategy, and your comms plan should ideally be very, very stable over that entire duration. It should be pretty fixed in terms of your overall goal and your overall objectives. They shouldn't change unless the business changes. You want a lot of consistency in your strategic direction because those long-term changes, they take time. So if you're changing your mind every month about what you're trying to achieve, you probably won't achieve anything. Your strategy document should be pretty rigid and inflexible, so it doesn't change, so that your overall direction will stay the same over that longer period of time. But your comms plan, on the other hand, totally different. It's totally flexible. It can change. It's a lot more fluid. Say, for example, you are trying to execute on something in the strategy, you have a detailed comms plan for it, and you try something and you get feedback to say, this is really not working. People hate this or people don't understand this. Then you're going to go back to that comms plan and change it. You're going to adapt to the feedback that you're hearing. You can absolutely change and tweak your comms plan. It's super flexible. So your strategy is staying the same, but the execution, how you are executing on that, can absolutely change depending on what's working and what's not, and the feedback that you're getting. So you're still trying to achieve the same goals, still moving in the same direction. It's just how you're going to get there is changing. That's totally fine. Difference number 4 is the purpose. A communication strategy and a communications plan have totally different purposes. A strategy focuses on long-term vision and business alignment. The purpose is to show how communication is going to link to business priorities, how it's going to help the organization to win. The strategy focuses on long-term vision and business alignment. It answers big questions like, how is communication going to help the business win? How does communication help us to achieve the strategic priorities of the organization? A plan, however, does not serve the same purpose. A plan is very much focused on execution. And the purpose is, how are we going to take this goal and make it a reality? What are we going to do? When are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? Who's going to be involved? So the purpose of both documents is quite different. Difference number 5 is around measurement and success. A strategy is going to set out some high-level measures related to business outcomes. Might focus on behavior changes or changes in big company priorities. Maybe it's employee retention or employee engagement scores or levels of efficiency or productivity or whatever that is. But you're thinking here in strategy in terms of measurement. What is our business impact? What difference are we making to the things that are really important to this company? How are we going to measure our results and our impact and not just our activity? But a comms plan will often focus more on measuring outputs. There might be some outcome level there, but they're going to be a little bit lower. So your comms plan, you might want to measure things like reach, like how many people came to our town halls, how many people read that email, how many people click that button. And both outcome measures and output measures are both important. They just serve different purposes. Outcomes are going to prove that you are delivering business value. Outputs are more about reach and proof that you are executing your tactics effectively. Difference number 6 is around a decision-making framework. I really like to think of a strategy document as a decision-making framework for your entire communications function. It should provide you and your team very clear criteria of what is important and where you should be spending your time. It also helps you to prioritize work and figure out what you should say no to, the work you should not be doing at all. It should really act as a filter for every request that comes your way. It should be a document you're looking at literally every day. For example, if your communication strategy is laser focused on driving efficiency in the company, then you can say no to working on the fun team building activity day that has landed on your desk, because that's got nothing to do with efficiency. It gives you that framework for making decisions. Now, a comms plan doesn't act in the same way. It's not going to serve as a decision-making framework for you and the team. Rather, it just details the decisions you've already made, and it'll outline the tactics and channels that you'll use to execute that decision. And you can see here, I think, when we talk about strategy as a decision-making framework, why it's so important and why I really encourage everybody to have a strategy. It really helps you stay very focused on delivering work that matters. And ultimately, that will benefit you in the long run because you'll be be able to say to your business leaders, look at the difference that communication made to the things that you care about. Very hard to do that without a strategy. You will just end up spending all your time on random acts of communication that people want. And difference number 7 is around the approval process. Another difference you might see between a communication strategy and a communications plan is the kind of level of approval that you're going to need for both documents. A high level communication strategy document that's aligned to business goals will often have to go in front of the leaders, in front of your C-suite for their approval and their buy-in. This is because it's about setting organizational direction and focus, and it's about allocating resources and priorities. This kind of approval process can, in some organizations, be very slow, and there's a lot of people involved and there's a lot of consensus building that has to happen. A comms plan, however, can be much quicker, and sign off is often maybe it's just your own boss, or it's within your own team, or it's one specific stakeholder. Because you're executing on, hopefully, a strategic framework that's already approved. You're taking part of your strategy that's already got signed off, and you're just figuring out how to turn that into reality. Okay, they are some of the key differences that I hope will help you understand what the hell is a communication strategy, what the hell is a plan, how are they different. I think when you explore the differences like that, you can kind of see why you ideally need both. You need the high level strategy to set the direction and the focus. That's the bit about what are we ultimately trying to achieve? Why does internal communication exist in this company? And then underneath that, you need multiple communication plans being built from that strategy to turn it into action. You need both. You need the strategy and you need plans. Because a strategy without a plan is just wishful thinking, and a plan without a strategy is just busy work. That's it for today. If you found this useful, hit that subscribe button and see you the next time.